who inspired the naming of Nigeria. God inspired it, whether you like it or not. And it was even God who inspired the putting up of Nigeria together. Because Nigeria is God's laboratory and the devil's workshop. But the same God who inspired the putting up of Nigeria together have decided to dissolve Nigeria and scatter the people of Nigeria. And nothing in this world can stop that. So that is the reality of the day. So this message I'm preaching is like the message of opening of the 7 seals. And that is what it is. So let's go back to the Bible and reflect on the 7 seals. So when you are prepared to do the work of God, the first thing you have to be prepared for is derogatory comments. So don't mind them, whatever they write about you, like what they say about me. I never cared. I never cared. That is what you get out of doing God's work. Derogatory comments. In spite of my money that I spent to do everything, that none of them have given me any damn cover. Since I started the process, all you get is derogatory comment. If God had not sent me to do this job, I will not do it. Because I'm called by heaven, and I will show you the evidence that God actually called me for this job. So let's go to the book of Revelation. Let me show you one thing. The opening of the seals, because this is likened to the opening of the seals. That's Revelation 6, chapter 6. 6 of the seals open. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and the crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. And when he had opened the 2nd seal, I heard the 2nd beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given to him a great sword. And when he had opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil on the vine. And when he had opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th beast say, Come and see. We are on the 4th seal. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death. And hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. And when he had opened up the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they heard. And they cried unto a loud voice, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy art thou, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that do it on the earth? And what was given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. And I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of fire, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely feast when she is shaken of a mighty wind, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every freeman, hide themselves in the den and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountain and rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Mgbe Jesus ga-abịa, okufufe ga-ebu anyanwụ n'ọnwa. Use the river to trace the boundaries of Biafra, especially the relationship between the Igbos and their riverine brethren. Let's read down that scripture in the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 13. Let's go from verse 1 to 2. It's a Paul and Barnabas on Cyprus. Now there we are in the church that was at Antioch, certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simon, that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch, and Saul. As they ministered to the Lord and fasted, the Holy Ghost said, separate me, Barnabas and Saul, from the work, for the work whereunto I have called them. So look at it, right there in the Bible. And that is why they are changing the truth of the Bible so that you cannot find the physical evidence to back up the Bible story. That is why they are writing the Bible as of today. That is it, so that you can't trace the origins. Now look at it. This is a complete church of God. When you go here, the teacher, the prophet, all of them are here. So Niger means a people of God. People of God. Niger area, like as I told you, I have found the people of God. Because I told you, the Bible is repeating itself in the same exactitude, just to provide the physical evidence that the Bible is true. Now look at it. Saul, who was Saul? Saul was the same man who was persecuting the Christians. On his way to Damascus, he was converted. Saul, why have thou persecuted me? That Jesus said to him, and his name was changed from Saul to Paul. Exactly where we are today. We can even in the Nigeria of today, you know, well, who is the modern day Saul that converted to Paul? You know, when we look at Nigeria today, you can see that the replica of what happened in the old is happening today. Take somebody like General T.Y. Danjuma, who was a former persecutor of the Christians. He is exactly the modern day Saul as of today. And today he is one of the strongest pillars in the Christian community, one of the greatest apostles of Jesus Christ as of today, just like Apostle Paul, Saul, who was a persecutor and later became even the pillar on which the New Testament was written. So General T.Y. Danjuma, I have said it before. There was a time I wrote to, one organization, one of the Igbo elders organization that I used to be in good relationship with. I asked them to reconcile the General T.Y. Danjuma with the wife of our late brother, Heroine, to reconcile them, but up to now they were not able to do that. And I would like the Christian elders to take it as a very serious mandate, while we still live it, to reconcile General T.Y. Danjuma with the wife of our late brother, General Agi Ironsi. And I begged Mrs. Agi Ironsi to forgive the past and allow a sleeping dog to lie. General T.Y. Danjuma has been converted to forgive and forget so that we can build a very strong relationship. And I take this opportunity to change the name of General T.Y. Danjuma, that Theophilus, I have changed it to General Apostle Paul Danjuma. All former documents remain valid, but I have changed his name from General T.Y. Danjuma to General Apostle Paul Danjuma. I've removed Theophilus to change it to Apostle Paul. That is the way it is. And when you go and look at it, you look at the rich young ruler who came to Jesus. Jesus, what can I do to enter the kingdom of heaven and all that? Jesus looked at him and said, okay, the gospel, the commandments and all that. The man said he had been keeping the commandment, and all that. Jesus looked at him, beheld him, and he knew actually that the man was speaking the truth. And he said, sell all your things, distribute it to the poor and follow me. His earthly possession was so much that he couldn't be able to do that. So the man had to go, and that was even what inspired Jesus to say that it's easier for a camel to pass through the eyes of the needle to... Who is that modern day ruler? Who is that modern day rich ruler today? That modern day rich ruler today is no other than the quintessential guy, Akpabio. This was a man who touched men and women, touched the life of many people. But because of earthly possession, what happened? He retraced his step and he went back. That's the example of the rich young ruler. And that is what, and look at the faith. Look at him today. And that is why it is said, what can he benefit a man if he gain the whole world but lose his soul? So these are the things. So the issue of Niger was never a derogatory name as they are mounting up. It was the corruption of the white race. They did it because they are devil inspired. That is what they do. Even in all these messages we preach, go and look at it. We preach a message today, one day alone, it has gone into 1,000 and something, they will block it. All the comments, they delete all the whole comments. The only comments they are going to allow are derogatory comments. That is how they went to Niger, N-I-G-E-R. They added G another G to make it N-I-G-G-E-R, nigger. Just to make it derogatory. That was a very good name, because everything that you see happening today is inspired by God. God is omnipresent and God is omnipotent. Now, how will the death in the fourth seal come about? And this is of a very big interest to the whole world, and I want the whole world to listen. Because I said that the Bible is repeating itself in the same exactitude to show that Jesus is God. That is the thing. The spirit of our ancestors, they are with us today, and we are going home finally. So now this takes us back to the dream of Pharaoh that Joseph interpreted. Now another Joseph is here. And this is Genesis 41, 1-4. He said, "And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamt. And behold, he stood by the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat flesh, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean flesh, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean flesh kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke." Now look at it. 7 kine is cattle. 7 fat cattle eaten up by 7 very lean cattle. It swallowed them, and when they swallowed them, I mean, it appears as if they didn't eat anything. And that is exactly where we are today. I have said before that the 7 lean cow represent the 7 northwestern states led by Sultan of Sokoto, and that the 7 fat cow represent the 7 Igbo-speaking states of Nigeria, which is what? Imo, Abia, Anambra, Ebonyi, Enugu State, Rivers State, and Delta State eating up. And now it have included, they want to swallow up even the whole Nigeria. That is what exactly is happening today. So let me just read, and this is organized by the Western, when we are talking about Western conspiracy against how the Western conspiracy, how they conspire to destroy the Biafrans, take over Nigeria, and from there they take over Africa. And that is what, by the Western powers, that thing was, I think it was 12 volumes, from 1 to 12 that we preach it, is still there. So they are the people behind this. And whom do they want to use? They want to use the Fulanese to do that. And I have told you that they want to use this, amalgam, this amalgam of Yoruba, Hausa, and Fulani conspiracy to destroy the Igbos. After destroying the Igbos, the same Western powers will now still use conspiratorial group, to descend on the Yorubas, destroy the Yorubas. After destroying the Yorubas, they turn back and swallow up the Hausas. After destroying the Hausas, then the Western power that send them will now come and destroy the Fulanis and keep the remnants that they want. That is what they want to achieve. So they want to achieve this swallow up through the Fulani Empire. So now let us look at the historical empire of Africa from the, British Britannica, of the origin of the Fulani Empire. Now, it's a Fulani Empire Muslim theocracy of the Western Sudan that flourished in the 19th century. The Fulani people of obscure origin, meaning a people of unknown origin, and I have decoded them as the missing link of Charles Darwin. You understand me? They originated from the land of the North. That is where they came from. I'm still going back to the reading. Expanded eastward from Futa Toro in Lower Senegal in the 14th century. By the 16th century, they had established themselves in Malina, upstream from the Niger Bend, and were proceeding eastward into Hausa land. Some settled in the 19th century at Adamawa in the northern Cameroons. Many of the Fulani continued to pursue a pastoral life. Some, however, particularly in Hausa land, gave up their nomadic pursuit and settled into existing urban communities and were converted to Islam. In the 1790s, a Fulani divinosman Danfodion, 1754 to 1817, who lived in the northern Hausa state of Gobai, northeast of Sokoto, quarreled with his rulers, accusing the Hausa kings of being little less than pagans. He encouraged the Hausa people to revolt. Joined both by Hausa commoners and Fulani pastoralists alike, the jihad or holy war swept through Hausa land and repulsed only by the Eastern Empire of Kanem-Borno engulfed Adamawa, Nupe, and Yoruba land to the south. After the invasion by the Fulani of the northern provinces of the Uyo, the Emirate of Heroine to the northeast became the base from which Islam was to spread among the Yorubas. Osman, who was more a scholar than a statesman, ceded the practical direction of the eastern part of the empire to his son, Muhammad Bello, who settled in Sokoto, and the western, with its capital at Gwandu, to his brother Abdullahi. All three continued the Fulani denunciation of Bonu. The empire reached its zenith under Muhammad Bello, who, like Osman, administered it according to the principles of Muslim law, that is Sharia law. The decay of the system was to aid the establishment in the late 19th century of British rule over what was to be known as northern Nigeria. I've said it was the British that inspired Osman Dan Fodio to come and start a jihad. Now you have seen it, a people of obscure origin, a people of unknown origin, a people that are not even Nigerians in every consideration. That is the method, that is what the Western powers, Britain, United States of America, and their cohorts are using to destroy the indigenous people of Nigeria and take their estate. That is the lean 7 cow of the Fulani Empire, swallowing up the entire country, the whole indigenous community of the country called Nigeria. And we are going to see how the Western powers plotted to do this, which was contained in the speech of John Kerry, which he delivered in Adamawa State. And that is very, very important. That is where the jihad was hatched in 2016 and to be executed then, but against their own expectation, Donald Trump won the United States of America election instead of Hillary Clinton. If not, the jihad would have taken place in 2016. And then Donald Trump, was imbued with a lot of Christian nobility and he was not part of the system. So he couldn't have allowed them to do it. So that is exactly what they are doing now with the knowledge and acquaintance of President Trump, because that is American policy that they are pursuing. So it is important I read the full speech for the whole world to know and see the first practical evidence that tie America to the current killings that is going on in Nigeria. That speech was delivered on Tuesday, the 23rd of August 2016, and the title of that speech is Importance of Resilient Communities and Religious Tolerance Encountering Violent Extremism by John Kerry. We are going to see the rate that is called Violent Extremism. We are going to decode it. So this speech is very, very important for the whole world to take note of what I'm going to say, exactly as it is, as it was written then by John Kerry. So I'm going to reproduce the full speech of John Kerry for record purposes, because it's going to be a legal document if their killing goes on, as they had intended it, and as they are carrying it out today. And one other big important reason again is a legal document, and not only that, if America go on with the killing that is going on, the whole of this world will not be the same again. This is exactly where we are now. So I'm reading the speech exactly as it was. Why U.S. is backing Buhari's government by Kerry? If you go to the internet, you will not say this, because both Zuckerberg or whatever is his name, they are working with the forces of darkness, and they have deleted all this speech from the internet, if we can even find it. So the full speech is United States Secretary of State, Mr. John Kerry, was in Sokoto on Tuesday, where he lauded the efforts of the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Saad Abubakar, for promoting religious tolerance and understanding among Nigerians. He also spoke on the need to build a community of tolerance for peace, progress, and political stability in Nigeria. Let me read the excerpt of that speech. The Sultan of Sokoto is the Mujahid. He is the head of all the whole terrorists in Nigeria. He is the head. Look at it. He is the one that will spearhead this jihad. So look at it. Preamble. Let me read the preamble. I'm reading the speech of John Kerry. Good morning to all of you, Your Excellency Governor Aminu Tambuwari, Your Excellency Governor Abdulaziz Yari, Your Excellency Sultan, who was very, very kind to host us here today and whose leadership I particularly appreciated with respect to all the interfaith efforts which are so important. Charge Brennan. Charge is spelled as C-H-A-R-O-G, to put in charge. Brennan, B-R-E-N-N-A-N. This was the director of CIA as of particular then, John Brennan. That is it. So we'll continue with the speech. Leaders from Nigeria's religious community, teachers and students, thank you very, very much for being here. You honor me by being here, and it is my privilege to be the first Secretary of State in history to come to Sokoto. I am very honored to be here, and I want to thank Maria for that very kind introduction and for the good work that she is doing in her community to promote social entrepreneurship and youth education and women's health. One subheading, Sokoto's place in history. Is from here you will understand why they are passing all this information, the decode of this thing, through Nnamdi Kalu's Radio Biafra. That is what is it. They are London jihadists that are already in Nigeria. So it's here you will understand why Nnamdi Kalu cannot refrain from mentioning Zeke, Ahmadu Bello, or John Kerry, or John Campbell, or Obama in 2016. You know, that is how you will understand why, because this is the heartbeat. This is the brain pulse of that thing, and without any of those things, they cannot be able to decode the messages passing through Biafra. So each subheading is very, very important. As I said, it says Sokoto's place in history. This is one subheading. He said, this is my third visit to Nigeria in the past 20 months, and I am delighted to be here. One of Nigeria's strengths is its diversity, which grows out of the distinctive contributions and culture of the various regions. And Sokoto is the place with an extraordinary history of faith, of tolerance, and of scholarship in all its forms. And I just came from a meeting a few minutes ago in which religious leaders and from His Eminence of the work that they are doing to try to embrace tolerance and provide opportunity for people. So this is a very special region. You don't need me to tell you that, but I want to make sure the world hears how special this region is. And it is special because the teaching of religion and ethics are prioritized right alongside the virtues of reading, writing, math, and science. Many of your former leaders actually started as school teachers, including, of course, the inspiring Ahmadu Bello. In fact, shortly after he graduated from a teaching college and years before he founded the university that today bears his name, Ahmadu Bello returned to his birthplace not far from here in Rabat. In hopes of educating his community, and at the time, there was no school, so he built a thatch hut where he began instructing children in his own family how to read and write. Then he asked his young scribes to teach their friends what they had learned and to keep expanding the circle so that the number of educated citizens will continue to grow. That kind of commitment has made a huge difference in Nigeria. And I expect that Ahmadu Bello would be proud that in the country today, school attendance, literacy, and graduation rates are higher than ever before. But he couldn't be satisfied, and you know that, because even late in his career, declared a war on ignorance. War on ignorance is in quote. And that is showing that it's an operational order. War on ignorance. And that is a war that much of the world is still fighting every single day, way beyond Nigeria. The reason is that to some people in this world, knowledge is not a goal to be pursued, but rather it is an enemy to be destroyed. Another subheading, impact of insurgency. When you look at this speech, you think it's an ordinary speech. This coded signal, coded order for jihad, interpreting every step they will use to carry out the jihad that is ongoing today. And that's already an impact on insurgency. As everyone in this room well knows, in its quest to destroy knowledge, the terrorist group Boko Haram has killed more than 20,000 people, displaced more than 2 million, and flung some 7 million Nigerians into hunger, thirst, and desperate need. On Sunday, they descended into a small village near Chibok in the middle of the night, looting every home that they saw, and then they took food and livestock before burning those horses to the ground. They killed 10 people that night and abducted 13 others, women and children, adding to the thousands of other victims, including the hundreds of girls of Chibok girls who were abducted more than 2 years ago. Boko Haram boasts no agenda other than to murder teachers, bomb books, kidnap students, rape women and girls, and slaughter innocent people, most of whom are Muslim. It has a complete and total disrespect for life, the opposite of every religion. It has a complete nihilistic view of the world. It fears knowledge, it fears education, it fears tolerance. In the past 2 years, it has used more than 100 women and girls to carry out suicide attacks. They actually teach girls how to hold a bomb under their armpits so that the explosive remains steady. They show teenagers how to use sword to decapitate We might as well ask how anyone could be brainwashed into such atrocities, but because the children are so young and because the abuse that they suffer is so great, even brave souls can be broken. This then is what Boko Haram is all about. And you know this better than I do. Not just murdering innocent people, but also transforming the most vulnerable people among us into killers of their neighbors, their own families, and even themselves. Curbing extremism, another subheading. Now, certainly now, Eastern Nigeria is not the only region that is plagued by violent extremism. I want you to know the word violent extremism. And sadly, Boko Haram isn't the only terrorist group that we face in the world today. Earlier this year, an Islamic militant group linked to Al-Qaeda killed 30 people when they bombed a hotel in Burkina Faso. Over the first 6 months of 2016, the Lord's Resistance Army abducted more than 500 people, mostly in the Central African Republic and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And just a few days ago, Al-Shabaab militants killed 15 people and injured more than 80 when they detonated an attack near an open market in Galkayo in Somalia. And terrorists from or inspired by Daesh have carried out vicious attacks in Europe, the Middle East, South Asia, and the United States of America. So make no mistake, we do not have to be the prisoners of this violent extremism. It can be eliminated. No one anywhere has to live or should have to live among this evil, and it is evil, but it isn't going to disappear on its own, and that is something that is eminent. The Sultan understands better than anybody as he preaches tolerance and brings interfaith groups together in order to do the hard work of pushing back against extremism. It takes work and it takes leadership. And it will require sustained efforts from all of us, from regional, national, and subnational leaders, from the United Nations, and other multinational institutions. It will take great effort by law enforcement and civil societies. And I want you to know today that the United States is deeply committed to this effort, including by helping our partners to be able to build counter-terrorism capacity. That is why at the State Department we introduced a countering violent extremism strategy earlier this year, and it is why we are working so hard to implement it, though I might add, you all are already under the leadership of the governor, and the Sultan are already engaged in your own countering violent extremism effort. Now, another subheading. Each subheading is a key. Denouncing dead-end ideologies. There is no question in recent months that important progress has been made, and particularly here in Nigeria. Over the last 6 months, the Nigerian army has rescued thousands of civilian hostages. Hundreds of Boko Haram fighters surrendered to Nigerian forces. In July, Nigerian troops captured, and I want people to pay particular attention to this. In July, Nigerian troops captured 16 of the group's leaders who admitted that they were running out of food, that their fighters were living off routes and on rifles. And just last week, your army thwarted an attack in the northeast and took out more than a dozen militants in the process. The fact is that through the multinational joint task force with help from the United States, France, and the United Kingdom, Nigeria and these neighbors are steadily degrading Boko Haram's capabilities. Their country has taken back most of the territory that the terrorists had once captured, and Cameroon, Niger, and Chad, and Benin have made important contributions and enormous sacrifices in areas along Nigerian borders. But we also know that beating Boko Haram on the battlefield is only the beginning of what we need to do. As the American writer Henry David Thoreau wrote, and this is a quote, "There are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to only one who is striking at the root." End of the quote. So we have to strike at the root causes of violent extremism. I want you to know the word violent extremism. Violent extremism is the enemy of all these things. That is the great enemy all these things are plotted against. Violent extremism. We are going to decode the race. All these things I've interpreted it before in my past work, but it's a desideratum in this particular edition, so that the world can see exactly what is happening. So go back to this page. It's to win the struggle for the future nation, so we have to strike at the root causes of violent extremism. To win the struggle for the future, nations need to do more than just denounce bankrupt, dead-end ideologies that the terrorists support. They also have to offer their citizens an alternative that is better, that offers hope, that actually delivers on its promises. Another subheading, lesson learned. Now we have learned a lot about violent extremism, in the last years. We obviously have been consumed by the fight against it since 2001, when out of the blue, the attack in New York took place. People join violent extremist groups for a number of different reasons, and some obviously do so against their will. But there are far too many who join the ranks of these organizations because they have trouble finding meaning or opportunity in their daily lives, because they are deeply frustrated and alienated, and because they hope groups like Boko Haram will somehow give them a sense of identity or purpose or power. We see this in every part of the world, whether we are talking about the Lake Chad Basin or the Sahel or a village in the Middle East or a city in Western Europe. It is the same. When people, and particularly young people, have no hope for the future and no faith in legitimate authority, when there are no outlets for people to express their concern, then aggravation festers and those people become vulnerable to outside influence. And no one knows this better than the violent extremist group, which regularly use humiliation and marginalization and inequality and poverty and corruption as recruitment tools. War against corruption. That is Buhari mantra. Look at it. So, but every subheading is a key. War against corruption. So one of our tasks, one of our central tasks, and almost every single religion leader I just had in the room talked about the race has to be to remove the vulnerabilities in our own position. They have to exclude themselves from corruption charges. Back to the speech. To effectively counter violent extremism, we have to ensure that military actions is coupled with a reinforced commitment to the values this region and all of Nigeria has a long legacy of supporting values like integrity, good governance, education, compassion, security, and respect for human rights. Values that the terrorists don't just ignore, my friend, but values that they desecrate and try to destroy at every turn that they can. So to start with, it is essential to build and rebuild trust in government, trust in the military, trust in law enforcement community, wherever that trust has been diminished. The fight against corruption has to be a global security priority of the first order, and we, all of us, particularly those nations like mine that have so much more than other countries, have an obligation to help those countries to avoid the downside of what happens when you are left on your own. Bribery, fraud, other forms of venality endangers everything that we hold dear, everything that you value. They feed organized crime. They know where at nation states, they take away the legitimacy of a nation state. They contribute to human trafficking. They discourage honest and accountable investment, and they undermine entire communities. And despite recent progress as a global community, we are collectively not yet doing nearly enough to clean up and improve governance globally. And that needs to change. We all pay for corruption, folks. We all pay for corruption. Corruption costs the global economy an estimated $2.6 trillion a year. That is $2.6 trillion that could be going towards infrastructure, towards health care, towards education, food security, other initiatives. Any number of areas where we know we need money to be able to make the investment that give young people the sense of future. But let's be very clear, corruption is not just a disgrace and a crime, it is also dangerous. There is nothing more demoralizing, more destructive, more disempowering to a citizen than they believe that the system is rigged against them. They believe that the system is designed to fry them, and that people in position of power, to use a diplomatic term, are crooks. Crooks are in quote. Crooks who are embezzling the future of their own people. And that's subheading, U.S. support for Nigeria. Now, this is something that your President Buhari, understands very, very well. President Buhari was elected on a platform of clean government, and the United States strongly support the step that he is taking in order to clean government. Nigeria is already a regional leader in many ways, economically and culturally, but you can also become a model in fighting corruption and the organized crime that so often goes along with it. And you have made a terrific start, a strong start at all levels of government. Already, President Buhari is working with civil societies to encourage official transparency and accountability. It is also so important to restore trust among the people. His administration has taken important steps to prevent the theft of public funds and to recover stolen assets. Last May, I joined him in the Anti-Corruption Summit in London, where he announced that Nigeria will join the Open Government Partnership, a step that will further strengthen the country's anti-crime efforts and advance institutional integrity, economic development, and citizens' engagement. Now, of course, building public trust in government also requires cooperation from law enforcement and the military. It is understandable that in the wake of terrorist activities, some people are tempted to crack down on every and anyone who could theoretically pose some sort of a threat. I caution against that today. Extremism cannot be defeated through repression or just creating fear. Fear instilled through impression invites not confidence, it invites contempt. It creates terrorists, trust creates citizens. Progress in this fight against corruption is going to go a long way to bringing Nigeria closer together and creating confidence in the integrity of government institutions. And it will also unleash the enormous potential that you have for economic growth, which exists in every single part of your country. And that would obviously be good for Nigeria, good for Africa, but be a good for everybody else in the world. Any government's most basic duty is to meet the need of its people, and good accountable government, just plain old good governance, is basically the key, but it is not the end of the story. In this country, more than 60% of your population is under the age of 25 years old, so it matters to all of us whether or not these young people are able to gain access to education and jobs that will enable them to contribute to their communities in beneficial ways. Dwindling economic fortune. We also know that the economy in this country has been hurt by the fall in oil prices and by shortages of infrastructure, especially in energy. A modern economy must have access to power. It needs ample grid capacity. The grid has to be able to deliver electricity to all parts of the country in order to keep the lights on, in order to enable a company to work, in order to build a factory, in order to let a business thrive, and it has to be supported by enough roads and bridges and rail lines and port facilities to connect producers to consumers with as little delay and expense as possible. But a modern economy also requires investment in its people. That is the key in schools at all levels and in programs that train and prepare graduates in order to be able to compete in the global marketplace. And that is why the United States is partnering with the Nigerian government and international donors to open temporary schools and other non-formal learning centers, places where, in addition to traditional schooling, displaced children are given access to meals, counseling, and other social services that empower them to be able to learn and to be able to grow up and be full citizens. At the center of that effort is a goal that I know is shared by so many Nigerians, including President Buhari, and that is giving women and girls an equal chance to compete in the classrooms and in the workplace. I was very pleased to hear about the initiative that is eminent the Sultan has launched to invest in girls' education, including setting up Women's College of Medicine. When women are educated and empowered, societies are more productive, more democratic, more inclusive, and far more prosperous. And that is a fact undeniable in country after country. So, my friend, improving governance and providing opportunities for all are two important pieces of the puzzle. The final piece that I want to mention today is the importance of building bridges through tolerance and acceptance. And that is another area in which Sokoto serves as a model for the region, for the country. This is why Nnamdi Kanu must always mention Ahmadu Bello or Nnamdi Azikiwe or John Kerry or John Campbell or Obama or Boko Haram in 2016. This is the main key. I'm coming now. Back to John Kerry's speech. I mentioned Ahmadu Bello at the beginning of my remarks. And there is an old story that I am sure many of you have heard at one time or another. I heard His Eminence use the word a few minutes ago when we were in the meeting we were in. Shortly after Nigeria's independence, the country's first president, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who had met briefly with Mr. Bello to discuss Nigerian future and ways to overcome the deep-seated ethnic and religious division that existed then. And as legend has it, President Azikiwe proclaimed, is in quote, "Let us now forget our differences," end of quote. And Bello countered, "No," in quote, Let us understand our differences, end of quote. And that is what His Eminence said. He said, that is what His Eminence said. He said, in quote, it is by understanding our differences that we can build unity throughout Nigeria, end of quote. This is the bomb in this. Now, under subheading, peaceful coexistence, another code. Peaceful coexistence, see going down. Equality and tolerance, justice and mercy, compassion and humility, these are values that transcend religion, ethnicities, and all kinds of moral codes. This is where it is. This is where you locate the race that are called violent extremism. They are certainly in keeping with the teaching of Islam that have enriched the world for centuries. And those who will tear our communities apart, pitting one religion or one set against another, they can only be defeated by citizens' unyielding commitment to unity and mutual understanding. And here I underscore, breaking the cycle of violence requires treating those who escape or defect from Boko Haram, and particularly those who were abducted against their will with sensitivity as they try to return to their old communities. Welcoming these individuals, especially women and girls, back into society safely without the threat of continued violence or discrimination, and ensuring that the millions who have been displaced here in Nigeria and throughout the region, that they get the humanitarian and government support that they desperately need. That is the only way to move a community forward beyond the turbulence of this crime. That is something that the United States is working very hard to support, that we will continue to work with you as you engage in these extremely important works. And that's subheading, empowerment of citizens. My friend, all of these efforts fighting corruption, promoting good governance, promoting opportunity for men and women alike, showing compassion and understanding for fellow citizens, even when it is difficult, all of these things will do an enormous amount to reduce the threat that is posed by violent extremism and to prevent it from re-emerging in the future. This is the way you invest in a future that is free from violence and provide you with the stability and the peace that you so desperately want. But there are also worthy efforts in their own right. It is amazing what can be accomplished when people are empowered to succeed. Consider the differences that a young man named Sayed, who is here today, has made in his community. Said, thank you so much. Said grew up in an impoverished community in northeast Nigeria. Conflict was very common in his neighborhood, and Said came to believe that poverty was largely to blame, so he wanted to turn that around when he turned 18 years old. He began to volunteer with a non-governmental organization that provided microloans to help women start their own business. Later, while studying for his undergraduate degree, he led a UNICEF team that educates youth about reproductive health and AIDS, and through his work, he developed a new understanding of the lack of trust in government, of the prevalence of corruption, and the need for transparency and accountability. He started working with the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the FIRS, leading public campaign to empower taxpayers to check on spending activities of tax officials and monitor for fraud. He spent years with the FIRS here in Sokoto, and he was honored multiple times for the mechanism that he introduced to improve fiscal transparency and openness in the tax process. And Said's work to address fraud and corruption continued to this very day. Not long ago, he launched a website called Follow Taxes, is in quote, that help Nigerians who cannot afford a tax consultant understand how to pay what they owe and avoid being taxed under false premises. Now, certainly, Said could have chosen a lot of other things to do. He could have pursued a very different path. Others who grew up in his situation have chosen a lot of worse ways to aid their frustration. Instead, Said has dedicated his life to finding solutions, and his work has helped millions of fellow citizens. He didn't accomplish what he has done by accident. He did it with hard work, compassionate mentors, a solid education, and the help of government programs and initiatives like the Washington Mandela Fellowship, for which he was selected in 2015. Still, Said's story frankly shows us what is possible when people are given the opportunity to explore their dreams and act on their ideas. It shows what is possible when people have a stake in the community and when they are able to have confidence in their future. A citizenry that is inspired, engaged, and empowered to take on whatever challenges society confronts, that is the way it was. That is what Ahmadu Bello and many Nigerian great leaders have worked to pursue, and the same goal should guide all the steps that we take today. That is how we will build strong, resilient communities. This is the end of this particular thing. And this is very, very important. I have to make this speech in depth, finish it, because this is a very big legal material that will help us to understand those that are behind the jihad that is going on in this. So we are going to decode this. When you look at this, you think it's an ordinary statement. That is not an ordinary statement. That is a coded war chess material that is being executed today. And these are the people who give Nnamdi Kanu the input, who write speeches for Nnamdi Kanu. Most of the speeches you see him blah 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 blah. These are the people who write some of the things that must be keyed into the broadcast that he is doing, because that is the signal that their laundered terrorists in Nigeria will understand. If not, they cannot understand the operational order that is coded into what Nnamdi Kanu is doing. So this background is very, very, very important. It may be boring reading the full speech, but it is very, very important so that we can be able to understand, directly tie America to the terrorism that is going on. Because here, the world court have to come into effect and prepare to have some big fishes in their net. We are going to see, by the time we decode it, we are going to see the atrocities of the United Nations. We are going to see the atrocities of all these world leaders, United Nations, that they should be disbanded, and most of them will be in prison. All this Bill Clinton and the Democrats for the atrocities that they have committed, both the WHO in the coronavirus and a lot of all these world leaders, we are going to see. And this is for the complete redemption of the black race. So what is being encoded into this particular thing is a thing for the whole black nation, and they have to stand up so that this message will get to them, and they must be prepared for the total emancipation of the black race and total redemption of the slavery that is put on the black man forever and ever as we take over our destiny. John Kerry, the former American Secretary of State, John Kerry, he made this speech on the 23rd of August 2016, like I told you. And I decoded this particular speech the same 2016 that it was made in one of my, flagship publications. That is the Anointed Treasure Journal. That's it. In 2016, I decoded it in 2016. The speech that looks like a very simple speech. It's not. It's a very coded signal, like as I said. And now we are going to, review the aspect that directly tied down America, connected America to the present jihad that is ongoing in Nigeria as of today. So let me just decode a little bit. I'm not going to decode the whole thing because it has been done in my past series, but because of the situation of the time that we live in. So it's very important that, I do the one that people can really see that it's America that are actually involved in the jihad that is ongoing in Nigeria, so that they have to call up their jackals. If not, there is going to be a global uprising if they don't do so. I've always said it that the quest for Biafra restoration is 95% spiritual, but people don't understand it. They don't know where these wars are being fought. So I'm not going to, let's just go to, let me actually, you have seen the full speech, because if you go to the internet, you'll not see it. So let's just look at some of the things he said so that we can look according to the magazine publication, what I wrote in 2016. Now, COVID extremism. Now, certainly northeastern Nigeria is not the only region that is plagued by violent extremism. And sadly, Boko Haram isn't the only terrorist group that we face in the world today. Earlier this year, an Islamist militant group linked to Al-Qaeda killed 30 people when they bombed a hotel in Burkina Faso. Over the first 6 months of 2016, the Lord's Resistance Army abducted more than 500 people, mostly in the Central African Republic and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And just a few days ago, Al-Shabaab militants killed 15 people and injured more than 80 when they detonated an attack near an open market in Garkayo in Somalia. And terrorists from or inspired by Daesh have carried out vicious attacks in Europe, the Middle East, South Asia, and the United States of America. So make no mistake, we do not have to be the prisoners of this violent extremism. It can be eliminated. No one anywhere has to live or should have to live among this evil, and it is evil, but it isn't going to disappear on its own. And that is something that is eminent. The Sultan understands better than anybody as he preaches tolerance and brings interfaith groups together in order to do the hard work of pushing back against extremism. It takes words and it takes leadership. And it will require sustained effort from all of us, from regional, national, and subnational leaders, from the United Nations and other multinational institutions. It will take great effort by law enforcement and civil society. And I want you to know today that the United States is deeply committed to this effort, including by helping our partners to be able to build counter-terrorism capacity. So all these things, counter-terrorism capacity. That is why at the State Department we introduced a countering violent extremism strategy earlier this year, and it is why we are working so hard to implement it. Though I might add, you all are already under the leadership of the governor, and the Sultan are already engaged in their own countering violent extremism effort. End of quote from John Kerry. So all these things are geared towards the rail that is called violent extremism. So let us now decode this particular thing exactly as I did in the journal that I showed you. This magazine, I came to America on the 23rd of December 2016. I gave a lot of copies even to President Trump. Later on, when I came newly, I gave to him. I gave to the leader of their Senate. I gave to David Dunes. I gave to a lot of people in America here, even in Nigeria before I came out. A lot of people got it. It was even sold in some part of the country before the military mopped it up. So it's a thing that is already there. So I'm going to give you the decode, exactly the decode that I did in 2016 for the world to see what ties America direct to what we're discussing now. I said earlier, this their jihad, it was meant to be carried out in 2016. All the mobilization that they are doing now is the same mobilization that they did then, to execute this jihad. But against the expectation, Trump, instead of Hillary Clinton, won that particular election. That was why the jihad was suspended. They couldn't do it because President Trump will not be disposed to doing it. But now, he is in agreement with it because it is an American policy. So this thing shows us exactly what is happening today, the mobilization that they have done in the country Nigeria as of today. This is the various different types of, terrorist group that they have created in Nigeria as of today, that already in Biafra land and everywhere, that is threatening the peace of the country as of today. So let me give you the decode, exactly as I wrote it in 2016. It said different phases of the strike force they will use in Biafra land and their mission. This is my own heading. Now, certainly, northern Nigeria is not the only region that is plagued by violent extremism, and sadly, Boko Haram isn't the only terrorist group that we face in the world today. End of quote. Meaning that Nigeria is not the only country in the world where they are facing this kind of challenges, and that Boko Haram they established in Nigeria to handle this particular Nigerian challenge is not the only terror group they have established to deal with similar situations in other parts of the world. Still going back to John Kerry's speech again. Earlier this year, an Islamist militant group linked to Al-Qaeda killed 30 people when they bombed a hotel in Burkina Faso. Over the first 6 months of 2016, the Lord's Resistance Army abducted more than 500 people, mostly in the Central African Republic and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And just a few days ago, Al-Shabaab militants killed 15 people and injured more than 80 when they detonated an attack near an open market in Gakayo in Somalia. And terrorists inspired by Daesh have carried out vicious attacks in Europe, the Middle East, South Asia, and the United States of America. End of quote. It means that there are already different categories of their London terrorist group, military groups, whatever one choose to call them, whether Boko Haram or jihadists, but one thing is common to all. They are not any local outfit, but specially well-trained groups in different categories, not under command of any local authority in Nigeria, be it military high command or the presidency. They are directly controlled and receive their orders direct from unseen commanders far away from Nigeria at American Ground Zero, or scattered all over the Western Command countries, and definitely not under one central command figure. These are the people that already laundered, they are jihadists that already been laundered in Biafra land and everywhere in Nigeria, that they are using IPOP radio through Nnamdi Kanu to give the signal to. That is exactly what is happening here. So each group may not know what the other is doing, and each group is engaged in their own particular trained area of operation and must go there ready to complete their specific task and must not be distracted from their specific target when hostility starts in Biafra land. All these groups are already on the ground in Biafra land studying their specific targets and putting the final touch on their operational guideline. That is exactly what it means. This one is Islamic militant, quoting Jonkeri again, Islamic militant group linked to Al-Qaeda bomb a hotel in Burkina Faso. End of quote. It means that those who are specifically trained and dispatched to take care of all the hotels in Biafra land, and they are currently even among the guests of these hotels, they will bomb when the final order is given. Most certainly, they have already been deployed in little groups to their various targets in Biafra land. Opening of quote. Lost resistant army abducted, end of quote. It means that this group have a specific instruction to abduct, not to kill, already earmarked persons that must be taken alive in the southeast and south-south, even north central. They also have been deployed. Law-resistant army will equally and most probably, apart from taking their victims alive, destroy all churches in Biafra land. Opening of quote. Al-Shabaab militant detonated an attack, not the use of attack and not bomb, near an open market. End of quote. Means all of most markets in the southeast and south-south had already received deployment of squads that will attack and bomb all these markets, currently studying the best time to strike most of them disguised as beggars who are spies that will report on movements of Biafrans. And terrorists are, quoting John Kerry, and terrorists are inspired by Daesh have carried, means that Daesh, they must be inspired and replicate what ISIS did in Iraq by their seizure and control of the area called Daesh in Iraq, which clearly shows that they created ISIS. The whole group, not limited to those mentioned above, are to be encouraged and improve on the success of others they will hear about and make their own operation far more better, far more vicious, far more terrible and horrendous than the ones already reported about in the various areas of operation, especially in the southeast, south-south, Benue, Plateau, and other places. The various Boko Haram commanders involved in the war are to seize Biafran towns and villages and control them as ISIS did at Daesh in Iraq, and in Iraq, even as Boko Haram did in the northeast from where they were relocated to Biafra land, as those living in the core north and southwest will be taken care of in those states by the local Boko Haram that will block all ISIS routes and embark on house-to-house massacre of Biafrans in their domain. That is exactly the message of Barack Obama to terrorist group against Christians in Nigeria, delivered through American Secretary of State John Kerry. Let me read one newspaper publication, before I go further to show exactly what is happening in this particular thing we are discussing now. It said 2019, I don't foresee light at the end of the tunnel, Balarabe. This is Vanguard of July 22, 2018. It said Alhaji Balarabe Musa is a former governor of Old Kaduna State. The veteran politician of leftist tendency in this interview bared his mind on the state of the nation. Question: how do you see the spate of killings in Nigeria? Now, this is his response. He said the latest killing in Sokoto proved that it is a nationwide problem. It is not a regional problem, neither is it the product of Boko Haram insurgency or herdsmen or ethnic religious-based cleansing. Every reasonable person should know that we have aspects of insecurity in every part of Nigeria. The killing is done in such a sophisticated manner that you cannot trace it to an aggrieved community or group of people. It is a well-planned, articulated, articulated, and executed. This is exactly what is happening here. So what we are seeing is the different phases of the jihadists they have already laundered. ISIS West Africa, Al-Qaeda, Fulani herdsmen, the other Fulani nationality movement, all these things are Al-Shabaab, all these things are terrorists that they have already laundered in Biafra land because they want to do a clearance operation. And the moment they finish, like Ufokbam, they disappear. That is exactly what is happening here. So when you see all these things John Kerry was saying here, all these things that were these different forces they created here, these are the things that they have already laundered in Biafra land that they will use to slaughter people. And when they finish, you cannot even trace it to any local aggrieved community like all these Fulani herdsmen, and you will not even trace it to them. And the way they are going to do it, when the Fulani herdsmen finish doing the operation, the same another group will come and finish the people that remain. The people will finish them and even finish the Fulani herdsmen, because they want to exterminate even the indigenous Hausa community. So all those Hausa people they are bringing there, they will exterminate everybody. That is exactly what they are doing. So these people are not receiving the order from Nigeria. They are receiving the order. They have already been laundered, and the only signal they can understand are keyed into that banter between Zik and Ahmadu Bello. So that is any coded signal that they will receive will be based on that before they can understand this. So that is how they have been carrying out the operation. That is exactly what is happening here. Still decoding John Kerry's speech from a publication of 2016 from the United Journal. Global conspiracy agrees on the slaughter of Biafrans. So quoting John Kerry, so make no mistake, we don't have to be prisoners of this violent extremism. Violent extremism is not a reference to Boko Haram terrorists or their allies. It's referring to a particular set of people, a particular set of races that we will come to identify shortly. Quoting John Kerry again, it can be eliminated. No one anywhere has to live among this evil, and it is evil, but isn't going to disappear on its own. End of quote. Means this particular race, violent extremism, can be eliminated. Quote, no one anywhere has to live, means this particular race are evil, and there is a united global call for their elimination from the surface of the earth. Because if you leave them as they are, they will not change, so they must be eliminated. Quote, we do not have to be prisoners of this violent extremism. End of quote. We cannot continuously be held at ransom by this race or group called violent extremism. Still decoding John Kerry's speech, quoting him. And this is something that is eminent that Sultan understands better than anybody as he preaches tolerance and bring interfaith groups together in order to do the hard work of pushing back against extremism. It takes leadership, and it will require sustained effort from all of us, from regional, national, and subnational leaders, from the United Nations and other multinational institutions. End of quote. Now, this is what it means. What this man said literally is, but before then, it is instructive to note that around the middle of July 2016, Sokoto State, the seat of the Caliphate, attained yet another milestone in the Islamic world following the decision by the Muslim World League, an international non-governmental Islamic-based marker, to locate their regional headquarters in Africa, Sokoto State. The organization, which was founded 54 years ago for the purpose of propagating the true teaching of Islam, including its principles and tenets, appointed the former governor of the state, Senator Aliyu Maga Takanda Wamako, as the President General of the African Office. The director of the league in charge of the Abuja office, Dr. Fado Kalot, recognized the singular effort of the late Northern Premier Sir Ahmadu Bello in the establishment of the World Muslim League. According to him, and I'm quoting him, we can reliably say that the late Ahmadu Bello was the brain behind the establishment of Muslim World League. It was he who suggested the need for the establishment of the League to King Faisal of Saudi Arabia in 1962. The suggestion was accepted, and when the king gave his consent, he was reported to have added that Africa has always been in the forefront in promoting the cause of Islam, citing the first hijrah to Abyssinia, that is Ethiopia, before reaching Medina. Kalot explained. He said the new office will undoubtedly pursue the League objectives and in turn bring maximum benefit and service to Sokoto State, to Nigeria, and to Africa in general. In his remarks, the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Mohammed Saad Abakatre, commended the Muslim World League for establishing a regional office in the state. He said the regional office will serve as an umbrella for the unity of the Muslim faithfuls in Sokoto, Nigeria, and Africa. His words, I'm quoting the Sultan of Sokoto, Muslims need to take advantage of organizations like this one to advance their cause through effective collaboration, we should use the office maximally to attract and encourage support for the propagation of Islam. End of quote. What the American Secretary of State literally said in his speech at Sokoto is that the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Mohammed Sadar Bakatare, who had seen and experienced firsthand the danger posed by the activities of violent extremism, this was clamoring for change in the already established and consolidated status quo oligarchy dominance of the Fulani leadership hold on power in Nigeria, must bring everything at its disposal, including the total support, total commitment of all the member countries of the Islamic World League to bear in a declaration of jihad against the race clamoring for change. That the fight is not going to be easy, so we must ensure the participation and unflinching support of those member countries of the United Nations and other terrorist organizations under the control of America to join the effort of the Sultanate of Sokoto in destroying these violent extremists that are clamoring for change in the established status quo in Nigeria. That is the direct operational statement of the American president under Barack Obama, spoken, delivered through the American Secretary of State, John Kerry. That's exactly what he said. Now, quoting him again, it will take great effort by law enforcement and civil society, I'm quoting John Kerry. And I want you to know today that the United States is deeply committed to this effort, including by helping our partners to be able to build counter-terrorism capacity. That is why at the State Department, we introduced a countering violent extremism strategy earlier this year, and it is why we are working so hard to implement it. Though I might add, you all are already under the leadership of the governor, and the Sultan is already engaged in their own countering violent extremism efforts. End of quote. These are people who are expecting America to come and help them. Now, the interpretation. This clearly shows that there is nothing like national security agency in relation to the armed forces in Nigeria, as they have become an instrument in the hands of a demented leader with international support to use the compromised security agencies for the complete extermination of a targeted race group of people within its domain, in partnership with both local and international level organizations that will work in tandem with them in raising false accusations and propaganda against the targeted race to justify the elimination, or, as in the case of the race involved in this discourse, deny that such things never occurred. The government of the United States of America, through the Secretary of State, John Kerry, literally said that this issue of dealing with this case of violent extremism is not a joking matter at all. As long as the United States of America is concerned, it is of the highest top priority rating to America. Nigeria should use the armed forces and other security agencies, as well as mount propaganda against this case of violent extremism, clamoring for change in the status quo, and deal ruthlessly with them. This is in 2016. Now look at it. Is it not what is happening today? Still going down. That the Department of State Service, DSS, should up immediately all the strategies they have put in place, like mothering these people of violent extremism instead of taking them to court, blackmailing them, and every negative strategy that has already been mapped out should be put into operation along with the existing ones to deal squarely with this case of violent extremism. We are going to ensure a constant invention of strategies we will always pass on to you for implementation to ensure you deal squarely and successfully with the threat posed by these people. That is what he said. They are not an easy people to defeat and eliminate, but with commitment and hard work, success will be attained, just as we at the international level are doing our own. The security agencies with our cooperation are doing their own, including the DSS, the Sultan of Sokoto, and the governors of at the political, religious, and civil talk will increase their already mapped out negative acts against these people, like blasphemy, killing, and so on and so forth, should be increased against this race in order to have a cover for their killings. Every act of provocation against this group should be increased to ginger their destruction. Still quoting John Kerry. There is no question in recent months that important progress has been made, and particularly here in Nigeria, over the last 6 months. The Nigerian army has rescued thousands of civilian hostages. Hundreds of Boko Haram fighters surrendered to Nigerian force. In July, Nigerian troops captured 16 of the group leaders who admitted that they were running out of food, that their fighters were living off fruits and unripe fruits. And just last week, their army thwarted an attack in the northeast and took out more than a dozen militants in the process. I will have to stop here and explain what happened here. Look at this speech. This speech was in 2016. Look at it. Let me repeat it. There is no question in recent months that important progress has been made, and particularly here in Nigeria, over the last 6 months, the Nigerian army has rescued thousands of civilian hostages. Hundreds of Boko Haram fighters surrendered to Nigerian forces. In July, Nigerian troops captured 16 of the group leaders who admitted that they were running out of food, that their fighters were living off fruits and unripe fruits. And just last week, their army thwarted an attack in the northeast and took out more than a dozen militants in the process. When was this thing written? This was written in 2016, and I'm going to shock you now and surprise you with what is happening. This is why when all these Fulani herdsmen, when they go to Biafra land, you see them operating cassava and everything. That is an order from the American government. Now let us see what happened. Now we have seen John Kerry's comment on the surrendered 16 Boko Haram terrorists. That was in 2016. Let us reflect it with the development of today. Let me read one news report for you. Hungry Boko Haram fighters surrendered to Nigerian army. This is the Nation of October 10, 2019. Now let me read another one for you. 16 Boko Haram ISWAP terrorists surrender as troops arrest criminal elements nationwide. This is Vanguard, November 8, 2019. Remember when John Kerry made the statement in 2016? Now look at it in 2019. Let me read the news report for you. In continuation of clearance operation against terrorists in northeast and criminal elements in other parts of Nigeria, troop bombardments have resulted in 16 Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists surrendering, making the disclosure in Abuja on Friday. Deputy Director, Army Public Relations, Colonel Aminu Ilisel, said troops also intercepted and arrested several Boko Haram logistics suppliers and informants in northeast, as well as they eliminated some bandits and other criminal elements in northwest and other parts of the nation. The army said on 1st November 2019, I'm quoting them, for instance, on 1st November 2019, for instance, 16 insurgents along with 8 of their spouse who could no longer bear the heat from the onslaught against them surrendered to the relentless troops of Sector 1 Multinational Joint Task Force at Fort Toko. Subsequently, the surrendered insurgents were later handed over to troops of 3 battalion men at Gamboru, Ngala, a border town northeast of Borno State. During preliminary interrogation and profiling, they confessed to have actively participated in attacks conducted against both military and civilian targets at various times. It was further revealed that 14 of them, whose names are Ibrahim Bunu, Abasel, Baba Lamba Alhaji, Boka Isa, Boka Ali, Rawa Abagana, Mustafa Abacha, Omar Abubakar, Hassan Buka, Malam Abacha Ali, Abba Omar Abacha, Hussein Babagana, Idris Mohammed, and Omar Abba Bayoma all belong to the Islamic State. West Africa province, ISWAP, led by Abanawi, who the remaining two, Hassan Kabua and Babagana Buka, all belong to Boko Haram Abubakar Shekau faction. The repentant insurgents, however, regretted their participation in the heinous crimes they committed against humanity and are now calling on their former colleagues to retrace their steps, also surrender to troops before it is too late. Do you know what? These are the Boko Haram, part of them. They are the commanders with other ones that are being controlled from outside that will lead other repentant Boko Harams in the war they are fighting in Biafra land. These are the people, Nnamdi Kanu and all these terrorists, their Campbell and all that, are using their radio to pass instructions of what they do. That is what exactly is happening. These are the people that are going to lead other so-called repentant terrorists, Boko Harams, that they are, they are putting into the military. These are the commanders that will lead them, that will fight that jihad. These are the people that will do the clearance job. Now look at it. Let me read one other report to substantiate what exactly I'm telling you so that you can understand what I mean. Let me read it. You say what? 287 repentant Boko Haram fighters to undergo rehabilitation. These ones have been released. This is Punch of November 2019. It said no fewer than 287 former Boko Haram fighters have been admitted by the military into a rehabilitation program under Operation Safe Corridor, being run by the Defense Headquarters Abuja in Gombe State. The Acting Director of Defense Information, Colonel Onyema Nwachukwu, confirmed this to our correspondent on Friday. He said other repentant terrorists will be joining the operation in 2 days' time. Nwachukwu said the operation also handed over 151 rehabilitated, look at what they call them, clients, to the Borno State government, for reintegration in July. According to the Defense Headquarters, the aim of the program, which began in September 2015, is to encourage willing and repentant Boko Haram terrorists to surrender and go through a structured de-radicalization process. The military spokesman told our correspondent that out of the 287 ex-fighters, 268, including 2 Chadians, had been transferred to their states for reintegration after completing the program. Nwachukwu said Operation Safe Corridor is an operation led by the Defense Headquarters. It is a non-kinetic, multi-agency humanitarian operation designed to de-radicalize, rehabilitate, and reintegrate the repentant Boko Haram members. Since its inception in 2016, Operation Safe Corridor has admitted 287 combatants into the program, out of which 268, including 2 Chadians, have been successfully reintegrated into the program. On July 22, 2019, the operation also transferred 151 rehabilitated clients, look at what they call them, clients, to the Borno State government for reintegration. Between September and October 2019, we hosted delegations from Cameroon and Chad to study the model of the program. In a couple of days, the program would commence again for the new intakes. He said, for security reasons, he could not state specifically the number of repentant Boko Haram terrorists entrant joining in 2 days' time. Now, what do they call them? Client. What is the definition of client? Client is defined as what? One that is under the protection of another, that is dependent. A person who engages the professional advice or services of another, meaning what? A customer. What is the meaning of combatant? Meaning definition. According to these guidelines, combatants are defined as those who endanger their life and have been trained to engage in combat and to harm the enemy in operational control. That is on the actual what? On the actual battlefield. So they are combatants. They are the clears of the federal government. That is why they are releasing all these repentant Boko Haram. They are to be commanded, they are to be under those 16 commanders and the rest of them. So these are the people, they are going to use this repentant Boko Haram to replace the real Nigerian army, all the whole Satanites in the army and all of them. These people are going to swallow them. Before you know it, they will kill all the whole policemen, all the whole military from Satan, from Christians and Satan parts. And then they will use these people to replace them. These are the people that are going to carry on jihad in Biafra land. You have seen it. So we are still continuing. Let's just quickly peruse some news report, to lay emphasis, on the importance of what I've been saying or what I've been trying to stress. Operation Safe Haven to rehabilitate 500 repentant Sarusuka boys. This is Punch of November 11, 2019. These ones have been, they are rehabilitated and reintegrated into the military. This one is military released 983 suspected Boko Haram members. This is Punch of November 27, 2019. This is Borno reintegrates 132 ex-Boko Haram members. This is October 7, 2019. Army hands over 151 repentant Boko Haram insurgents to Borno State government. This is guidance of July 22, 2019. I'm only saying the one that happened in 2019. We are not even deliberated on the one that happened in 2020. So when you check the number of these Boko Haram insurgents that they are being releasing, Their number, when you calculate it, their number has equaled and surpassed the Christian soldiers in the Nigerian army and in the Nigerian police. So the objective is to do what? To use these people to replace the normal Nigerian army and police officers. They are going to swallow them up, like the dream of Pharaoh I showed you by the river bank. So they are supplanting the normal Nigerian soldiers with, these are the main combatants. They are the combatants, the clients of the federal government, the clients of Buhari or Fai, and the Fulani movement of Nigeria. They are their combatants, their claims that are going to fight the Biafra, the group that are called what? Violent extremism. So slowly, they are going to eliminate our people in the army and use these people to replace them. That is exactly what is playing out. So let us now go back to see the group, to define the group that is known as violent extremism. It's very, very important. Let me go back to John Kerry's speech from the publication I did in what? In 2016. Now he said, there's no question. Okay, from where I stopped. He said, back to John Kerry's speech. And just last week, your army thwarted an attack in the northeast and took out more than a dozen militants in the process. The fact is that through the multinational joint task force with help from the United States, France, and the United Kingdom, Nigeria and these neighbors are degrading Boko Haram capabilities. Their country has taken back most of the territory that the terrorists had captured, and Cameroon, Niger, Chad, and Benin have made important contributions and animal sacrifices in area along these borders. End of quote from John Kerry. This is followed by 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil, which I'm going to explain later. Now, still going down the line of John Kerry's manufactured legend story of Zeke and Ahmadu Bello, to a very important clarification that needs to be made on the race that is termed as what? Violent extremism, which is very important to really understand the literal message and instruction that are contained in the above statement of John Kerry that we will soon decode. And know all this war preparation, all these speeches that John Kerry made is against what? Violent extremism. Not John Kerry's use of evil most times refers to the people or race referred as what? Violent extremism. And before we even go further to identify that group or race, it is important to reproduce an earlier treated remark of John Kerry to wit, so make no mistake, we do not have to be the prisoners of this violent extremism. It can be eliminated. No one anywhere has to live or should have to live among this evil, and it is evil. But it isn't going to disappear on its own, and that is something that is eminent. The Sultan understood better than anybody as he preaches tolerance and brings interfaith groups together in order to do the hard work of pushing back against extremism. It takes work and it takes leadership, and it will require sustained effort of all of us, from regional, national, and sub-national leaders, from the United Nations and other multinational institutions. End of quote of John Kerry. You see the intensity of the hatred for this race called what? Violent extremism, as you go to decode it now. Very important to know the reproduced statement of John Kerry, which is direct reference to an identified but unmentioned enemy that we must identify now, who he is immediately after John Kerry's imaginary banter in his legend story on Zeke and Ahmadu Bello. To wit, that is why Nnamdi Kanu is always mentioning Zeke. I told you, look at it. To wit, this is what they said. Zeke said, I'm quoting John Kerry, let us now forget our differences. And Bello countered, no, let us understand our differences. End of quote. What followed immediately is in the context where we will locate the enemy referred as evil, violent extremism, that the whole world have united to destroy and eliminate from the surface of the earth, and clearly shows or locate the real difference in the imaginary conversation he was talking about between President Azikiwe and Ahmadu Bello. What follows came under the subheading, peaceful coexistence. Peaceful coexistence is the final order for their jihad. Now look at it, I'm quoting him. Equality and tolerance, justice and mercy, compassion and humility. These are values that transcend religious ethnicities and all kinds of moral codes. They are certainly in teaching with the teaching of Islam that has enriched the world for centuries. And now look at where I locate the violent extremism. I'm still quoting John Kerry. And those who will tear our communities apart, pitting one religion or one sect against another, they can only be defeated by citizens' unyielding commitment to unity and mutual understanding. End of John Kerry's quote. This is where what you will decode to get the race that is called violent extremism. Match this statement with the reproduced earlier treated statement on evil that no one anywhere have to live with. that the United Nations and every institution in the world has already united to eliminate from the surface of the earth, something referring to the same race or group of people. Now, as I said, who are those race or group in Nigeria today most vociferous and seriously want to separate from the Nigerian state today? Who are those? And those who will tear our communities apart. That is quote of John Kerry. The answer is as clear as crystal. The group is the Biafrans as a group. If one still insists on separating these two twin brothers of the same parents apart, they are still linked and binded by the same bloodline, the same destiny, and they too, if you choose to call them Niger Delta people, had threatened to declare their own independence. If the world does not understand them and knew that they are one people, why are they not treating the Niger Delta people differently as they are treating the Igbos, whom they are pointing to the Niger Delta people that they are not their brothers? Are they not suffering the same fate with the Igbos in Nigeria as the Igbos in Nigeria? So this is the race that is called what? Violent extremism. The race violent extremism is what? Biafran. So every statement they are making in violent extremism, you know that they are directing it at you. Now look at it. Let's go to another one from John Kerry's speech. How they plan to, let me quote it. Tip on John Kerry's speech, denouncing dead-end ideology. That is where it is. Now I said, I'm quoting John Kerry. The fact is that through the multinational joint task force with help from the United States, France, and the United Kingdom, Nigeria and these neighbors are steadily degrading Boko Haram capabilities. They are talking about violent extremism. The Biafran, that's what they are referring to, or their whole gang up. Their country has taken back most of the territory that the terrorists had once captured, and Cameroon, Niger, and Chad and Benin have made important contributions and enormous sacrifices in areas along Nigerian borders. But we know, now look at this quote, but we also know that beating Boko Haram on the battlefield is only the beginning of what we need to do. As the American writer Henry David Thoreau wrote, there are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to only one who is striking at the root. So we have to strike at the root cause of violent extremism to win the struggle for the future nation. For the future, nations need to do more than just denounce bankrupt dead-end ideology that the terrorists support. They also have to offer their citizens an alternative that is better, that offers hope, that actually delivers on its promises. End of John Kerry's quote. Now, let us decode this thing. Planned wipeout of Biafrans and military hardwares already deployed. That's my soft-heading. Back to John Kerry's speech. As the American writer Henry Thoreau wrote, there are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to only one who is striking at the root. So we have to strike at the root cause of violent extremism. End of quote. This stanza has been treated earlier. This order is the reason why Muhammadu Buhari, needless to address him as the president anymore, told his Muslim delegates that the measures he is implementing in the Niger Delta region will guarantee peace in the region for a very long time. That is the wipeout. Now, elder statesman and prolific writer Ato Agun Chawanko, he's now late. I gave him a copy of this thing in 2016 when it was published, before I came to America. In one of his numerous published articles, writing on this same Buhari and the role he played in the massacre of Biafra, I'm reading from my decode of the journal. During the Civil War, he recounted the story of Ganiyu Sodende of the Nigerian Army Weapon Training Depot. His service number is NA-38611. In one of his entries in the war diary, he told his men that it may be difficult to subjugate Ndibo in the war, but even if such prospect was feasible in the war, his fear was that another generation of Ndibo would wake up one day and pick up the struggle. To forestall that kind of situation, he ordered his men to kill any Igbo person they saw, after one called recounted, which happened in this renewed agitation for the restoration of the Biafran Republic, long ongoing. And Ganiyu Sodende's specialty is exactly what is playing out in this American order on Buhari by the evil regime of Barack Obama to wipe out Biafran children after killing their men in the coming war. Biafran men, now look at it, 1,000 hacking at the branches. It means killing of the Biafran men, only one is striking at the root, meaning, so we have to strike at the root cause. We have to kill the Biafran children after killing their men to forestall another generation of Biafrans from waking up one day and pick up the struggle all over again. That is their plan for you. Today, that my decode in 2016, all these things I told you, this jihad was postponed because they did all this laundering because they wanted to carry out the jihad in 2016. But because Trump won, that was why it was suspended. So what is there is they have added to what they have already laundered in 2016. That is what is playing out. Today, all the heavy military armaments America and other foreign powers supplied to Buhari in the guise of fighting Boko Haram in the northeast never saw any battle in the northeast. All of them had been deployed to the former eastern region long before the so-called Operation Crocodile was launched, using the Rivers State rerun election as cover. The remaining were brought in during the so-called Crocodile Smile, and more is still coming in to date. Buhari had ordered for Russia war helicopters, UAVs, from Dubai. He had ordered for the Yahoo-20 UAVs from Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, to replace the Chinese CH-3A UAV in the arsenal of the military. It was stated that the military would rely heavily on the Yabon 20 UAV, which carries 4 missiles on its wings in each shuttle it makes, to allow the country by November 2016, while the others expected next year. All these things, all of them are in Nigeria. Still going further, the Punch newspaper reported it was further learned that the federal government is also purchasing M135M helicopters from Russia to prepare the Nigerian Air Force to monitor and combat those behind the destruction of oil and gas rehabilitation, gas installation in the Niger Delta. The M135M is the latest and most sophisticated version of the M135, which is one of the attack helicopters of the Nigerian Air Force. The source said that 3 of the M135M attack helicopters are expected to come into the country from Russia in November. It was learned that the Defense Authority made an arrangement with the Russians to purchase 15 of the modern attack helicopters for the planned area operation in the south. It was gathered that the Russians had also trained 33 personnel of the Nigerian Air Force on how to fly and handle the all-weather helicopters, which could operate night and day. It was learned that those who went for the training in Russia arrived the country 3 weeks ago. It was also learned that the acceptance flight for the helicopters was carried out last July. The source said the federal government is not sleeping over the attacks on oil installations in the Niger Delta region. Comprehensive tests are being taken on this disturbing development. The government is importing the Yabon 20 UAV from Dubai. The unique thing about this drone is that it carries 4 missiles on its wings and it is quite effective. Very soon, Nigerians will see differences. Apart from that, the military is also acquiring M135M from Russia. This is the latest version of the M135 being used by the Nigerian Air Force. The difference is that this particular one is more sophisticated. It is all weather and it has night capability, which means it can operate both day and night. 3 of them will arrive in the country in November this year. The plan is to bring the remaining 12 over the years. Some of the personnel of the Nigerian Air Force who went for the training on the use of the aircraft returned to the country weeks ago. Also, their acceptance flight was done 3 weeks ago, the source told Punch. The truth is that the expected ones are not arriving. That's end of quote. Now, I'm decoding it. In the 2016, that's when I wrote this thing. It said the truth is that the expected ones are not arriving by November at the source. They are arriving in the country anymore. All of them are arriving in the country now, and even more has been added, which is exactly what Buhari is waiting for the full jihad to start. All the Muhammad Buhari's deceit on claiming to seek dialogue are only the late tactics for the arrival of the mass destructive armament, because they, with their international co-conspirators, do not want any prolonged offensive against Biafra. They wanted a quick dash that will be over in a matter of days, in fact at most 7 to 10 days before the propaganda that will be mounted through the United Nations, America, Britain, France, Germany, members of the G8 countries will begin to wane, and the world start to see the true reality of what is taking place. By their calculation, it will be all over by then. And that is what they are still planning now. As of today, Buhari has received a lot of military hardware directly from the American government, including the following items as of the end of 2015 to early 2016, not including a lot more that came afterwards through the evil court sedulously maintained for Saudi Arabia. And the items are Cayman Cross, manufactured by the British-based BAE system, Max Pro Emora, mine-resistant ambush protected, made by Navistar Defense. Most of these armor tanks were deployed to the Niger Delta. During the so-called election, they used the cover to move heavy armament down east. Others are in Cross River State, southeast, and over Biafra land. Now let us see another strong evidence that connects America to the jihad that is going on in Nigeria. Mind you, I wrote this in 2016 from my journal, how they will route their military operation. And from here you will understand why they are clearing up the Christian communities in the north. Now I'm reading from my own, John Kerry's speech, quoting him. The fact is that through the multinational joint task force with help from the United States, France and the United Kingdom, Nigeria and these neighbors are still degrading Boko Haram's capabilities. Their country has taken back most of the territory that the terrorists had once captured. And Cameroon, Niger, Chad and Benin have made important contributions and enormous sacrifices in areas along Nigerian borders. End of quote. Now I'm interpreting it. It's just the same old combination or alliances of international collaborators and their counterparts to defeat Biafra and totally capture them using most of the trained jihadist soldiers from Cameroon, Chad, Niger, Benin, and so on and so forth for the speedy prosecutions of the war in Biafra land. As the regular army most certainly will have divided opinion, even though most of the non-Christian soldiers would have been eliminated and totally incapacitated before the jihad will commence. Finally, on this stanza, armaments will be supplied by America, Britain, France, and others routed through France to Cameroon, Chad, Niger, Lagos, Ogun, through Benin Republic, direct into Nigeria, on notice since Biafrans in the far-flung northern states have been disemboweled from these areas. States like Adamawa will receive heavy military hardware for the northern jihadists disguised as Nigerian soldiers from Adamawa. For instance, they are already in Taraba State. In Sekut Benue, others have moved to Cross River, Enugu, Ebonyi, automatically taken. From Cross River, Akwa Ibom, Abia is already in Sekut. Heavy armaments from Bonu, Yobe Axis, they are already in Gombe. Plateau is in Sekut. Cut off from Bauchi, Kaduna, Abuja is also in Sekut. From Niger, Nasarawa, Kogi is already theirs. That shall border with 9 states, where River Niger and Benue meet as Navy is primed and set as Cross River and the Gulf of Guinea is cut off. From the southwest flank, Edo and Delta is already theirs, as we recount the statement of the flag officer commanding the Central Naval Command. Via Admiral Mohammed Gaba, reported on the Nation newspaper of Sunday, August 7, 2016, Admiral Mohammed Gaba in Wari Delta State disclosed that the defense headquarters had raised the military alert level in the Niger Delta region, stressing that formations are on red alert. All of us are on red alert, and that is why you can see all the deployment all over. The Air Force, Navy, Police, and DSS, all of us are working together. There is no cause for alarm. There is no cause for alarm because we have already taken all strategic places, he told the Nation newspaper. Then, tell me what remained of Biafra that has not been taken. Now, very, very important. This was written in 2016. Now, let me go back a little bit to show you the iron cast evidence of what America is doing in Nigeria. I said, states like Adamawa will receive heavy military hardware for the northern jihadists disguised as Nigerian soldiers. This was written in 2016. Now, let us see what actually happened. That was in 2016 because I told you this their jihad, they wanted to carry it out then, but then they suspended it. So look at it. Let me read one news report for you. 6 mine-resistant military vehicles intercepted at Nigerian-Cameroon border. Sahara Reporters, August 24, 2019. No fewer than 6 mine-resistant military vehicles have been intercepted by a joint security operation in Konko, a border community in Maiha local government area of Adamawa State, between Nigeria and Cameroon Republic. It is not clear if the vehicles were exiting or coming into the country when they were intercepted. A source in the Nigerian Customs Service who spoke with Sahara Reporters said, "We have the 6 mine-resistant equipment at office in Yola. It was a joint operation involving our officers, the Department of State Service, Army, and others. Sahara reporters learned that the military high command in Abuja had ordered an urgent investigation into the war, into the discovery. Then look at the follow-up story for people to know. Custom hands over 6 American military vehicles. Vanguard, October 11, 2019. It said the Nigerian Customs Service has handed over the 6-mile resistant multi-purpose vehicles to the American government. Have you seen it? Those who are looking for the American to come and save them with the knowledge of President Trump. He said, speaking on the question of the handing over, the controller of custom in charge of Adamawa and Taraba State, Kamadin Uluma, said it was a directive from the National Security Advisor to release the vehicles to the American government. I am directed by the National Security Advisor to comply, release, and hand over the vehicles to the American government. Kathleen Fitzgibbon, the Deputy Chief of Mission Embassy of the United States of America in Nigeria, thanked the Nigerian government for its understanding. Have you seen it? We are not fighting the Fulanis. The Fulanis are only the cover used by Western nations to kill us. I have told you, our enemies are the Western world. The white race are our enemies. Any killing in Biafra land, if this jihad, they don't call it off, I'm telling you, the blacks will rise against the whites all over the world. This world will never remain the same thing. If President Trump did not call off Campbell and all these things, call off these jihads that they have already set for Biafra land, this world will never be the same again. So let there be an immediate marching to the White House to bring to notice what actually is happening in Biafra land. If not, look at it. The American government. Let me read another report for you. It's a busted Saudi Arabia quarter allegedly funding Boko Haram terrorist organization. This is Soglo, Vanguard of October 3, 2019. It's a fires have occurred of the people sponsoring the dreaded terrorist organization Boko Haram in Nigeria. It has been proven that Boko Haram is allegedly funded by Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And this thing, anything you see Saudi Arabia, is the Americans that are doing it. This is the headquarters of the Antichrist that you cannot see. All these weapons sold to Saudi Arabia by President Trump was intentionally sold to him so that he supply it to Nigeria and all the rest of African countries and all the rest of the places that they are using it to kill innocent people from Africa. Now, the statement by Knight for Soglo, former president of the Republic, at the Constitutional Term Limit Summit covered by the cable in Niger Republic, revealed that friends from Qatar and Saudi Arabia are the ones sponsoring Boko Haram. Soglo said, and I'm quoting Soglo, Boko Haram is funded by our friends from Saudi Arabia and our friends from Qatar. Are we friends or not? Let's tell ourselves the truth. We have to stand together. I am optimistic we are going to win if we stand together. And tomorrow they are telling you this. All these terrorist organizations, all this, see them, Al-Qaeda, ISIS and all that. American trained soldiers, jihadists to come and wipe us out. Because the white race are already going extinct. They're already going extinct and they are not even surviving the vagaries of weather, of this contemporary weather we are having today. So their goal is to exterminate the white race, the black race, and take over our natural resources. That's what they are doing. So all these things you are seeing, Boko Haram, they are already, they are the ones who are the Boko Haram themselves. We have been tracing them. Look at it. Saudi Arabia, and when you hear Saudi Arabia, it's America. That's what they are doing. So there's no need to go on and go. Let me just still go back to the decode of a very important thing that I want to show you from the Anointed Treasure that I wrote in 2015. Let me just read it. How they plan to checkmate Christian officers. I'm reading from my decode. All of a sudden, the Boko Haram they openly told us had been defeated is now in serious battle with Nigerian soldiers in Sambisa Forest. What the people don't know is that it was a ploy to gather the bulk of the Christian soldiers and place them on the strategic point of no way to escape, as they are all surrounded by their enemies in the guise of fellow soldiers. Only it will be too late when their supposed military colleagues will open fire on them and kill them all the same way they did to Abu Ali and his colleagues. General Irabo and others should read the handwriting on the wall now and move down east. I had already written it earlier. American Secretary of State John Kerry's instruction to make sure nothing edible remains in Biafra land to ensure their stranglehold to wit, and I'm quoting John Kerry. In July, Nigerian troops captured 16 of the group Boko Haram leaders who admitted that they were running out of food, that their fighters were living off fruits and unripe fruits. This order is already being implemented to the letter. People will do well to go through the Sunday Sun news report of December 11, 2016. You know, they made this deployment in 2016, but because of Trump winning the election, they reversed it. The same thing they did then is what they have already done now. All of them, they are all in the East now. Sunday Sun news report of December 11, 2016, they carried a report on Igbo versus the Fulani herdsmen that ran through page 47, 49, and 50, in which the outer Fulani pointedly told the Igbos that come rain consumption, they have finally come to live permanently in their land with or without their permission, because according to them, they have nowhere else to go. According to Sun newspaper report, I'm quoting the report. Last month, November, no fewer than 5 persons from Ndi Okereke Abam in Ovuku Autonomous Community were hospitalized following the injury they sustained from bullet wounds and machete cuts in a clash with the Fulani herdsmen. Though no death was reported, one person who was allegedly shot was said to have narrowly escaped the bullet that grazed his chest region. President General of the town, Chief Chukwuma Ebuta Okubi, who narrated the incident, said the herdsmen led their cattle into the farmland of the natives, destroying the crops. That's exactly what they are doing today. According to him, the matter was made worse when the herdsmen started uprooting cassava and yam for the cattle to eat. That is by the orders of the American, John Kerry. His words, they left the grasses their cattle normally graze on to destroy the crops, which is our only source of livelihood. When we asked them to leave the community after an altercation on the same matter, they left initially, but came back to promise that they would not destroy the crops, and we are living peacefully with them until that Friday afternoon when one of our men visited the Zara farm with his family members to carry home harvested rice. The report continues. To his surprise, the herdsmen had led the cattle to the heap of harvested rice that they were feeding on them. He split to the herdsmen to take the hearts of cattle away from the rice harvest, fell on deaf ears as they rather drew their machetes and gave several calls on the men. Members of the man family escaped and raised the alarm in the community, which drew the attention of the youth. When the youth got to the scene, the herdsmen began shooting at them, leaving 6 fatally wounded. That is exactly how we are finally trapped in our God-given land. This is the work of the Americans. It's the white race that are doing it. It's the Americans. Instructively, President Muhammadu Buhari had told us that the killer herdsmen are from Libya, Niger, and so on and so forth. The Sultan of Sokoto told us that they are foreign terrorists. The former Inspector General of Police, Solomon Arase, while still serving, told us that they are Chadians. Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tuku Buratai, told us that Boko Haram has infiltrated the army in the reports of the attack on Ndi Okereke community cited earlier, as was reported in the Sunday Sun of December 11, 2016, in which the President General of the community, Chief Chukwuma Ebuta Okubi, explained how his community was attacked by Fulani herdsmen. In the same report, the Sun newspaper also reported that barely 2 weeks after that ugly incident on November 30, precisely, another group of herdsmen invaded Oboko in Ozitem community in Bende local government area, destroying crops and maiming the natives. One of the victims, according to the report, 40-year-old Sunday Oru, a father of 7 whose finger was chopped off, spoke with Sunday Sun from his hospital bed. He said the herdsmen threatened to conquer and occupy the place if they asked them to leave, boasting that this is one Nigeria. Secretary to the Abia State government, Dr. Eme Okoro, a native of the community where the attack took place, confirmed the incident. His word, I called the Assistant Inspector General of Police and Zonal Commander to inform them of plans to invade the community. He promised to send the Commissioner of Police. I cannot tell what may have been the handicap of the police. The herdsmen are now behaving as if the Southeast is a conquered territory. The Fulani herdsmen should know that crops are so important to us as their own cattle are to them. Now, Ogu-Item people have lost their main source of livelihood. All the women who are okra farmers have lost their harvest. Yet, no one single of them has been arrested, harried and harassed by the Buhari administration, not to talk of arrest and prosecution. People, they say they are from Niger, they are from Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. Those are the same people that they are releasing. I want to call on my brother AP before I forget. Alan Onyema, please, I want you to move all your aircraft from Nigeria. Move them from Nigeria until at least after October you can return them. Otherwise they'll destroy it. They are going to destroy your airplanes. Remove them. I'm begging you, my brother, please. Let's just peruse the audio tape of Abu Musab Abanawi of Friday, August 5, 2016, published by Saturday Telegraph of August 6, 2016. Is Boko Haram leadership crisis. Abanawi leads Sheku Sen. That is on page 3 and 5. And where is even Shekau? Where is he? He's in Abtorok there with Buhari. That's where he is. You think it's a joke? That is serious. This same speech, all this tape they are doing, that is the same way they give to Nnamdi Kanu. Could they signals and inside all these things is ready. That's the same thing they do with Nnamdi Kanu. They are the ones that wrote all those speeches. He'll be speaking, then they will give him the same thing to write. They are the same people who wrote all those Boko Haram speeches that we used to see. That is exactly what is happening. So let me just peruse some of the speeches, and from there we'll see how the signals that are coded there. I'm quoting Abanawi, what he said. Another case of Sheka's insensitivity is abandoning to hunger, abandoning fighters to hunger, as well as women and children who go without food, and so on and so forth. You know what it means? End of quote. Ordered in position of blockade, nothing comes in from Lagos or Northern Axis anymore. Total blockade of Biafran land and sea, air, land, and a repeat of starvation being a legitimate instrument of war. A repeat of the kind of hunger, malnutrition that begot Koshoko during the war will be imposed on Biafran land, resulting in mass death out of what? Hunger. This was what? 2016. And look at it. Is it not happening today? Now, I'm still quoting the audio tape. The audio was played and Shekau was heard saying the following, that children are dying. Let even 100,000 die. Now, nonsense. Am I the one holding them? I can only do what I can. Am I here to breed babies? You can't disturb me. Who told you my duty is to look after babies? Who told you my duty is to look after fighters? If this is what you are talking about, then it is you that should look after me. It means very direct order to kill all children and their mothers, including pregnant women. They are to search hospitals, children's homes, and kill them all. A repeat of what King Herod did when baby Jesus was born, as he ordered the killing of the whole children born within the period in the hope of killing the baby Jesus, whom he saw as a threat to his kingdom. Still quoting Abanawi. Even when fighters advance towards enemies, Chicago doesn't make logistics available for fighters. The other time, we lost plenty of gas and fuel to fire. Direct order to destroy